Hi, my name's Joe Hamilton. I'm the chairman and the CEO of Unigold Inc. Unigold's a company that's conducting exploration and development in the Caribbean, in the nation of the Dominican Republic. We're here to talk about what we're doing and what do we expect to see in the future.
Joe, good to see you again. Been a while, 2
Thanks,
years.
Matt.
And we bumped
It
into
has
each
been
other in
2 years.
Quebec, didn't we? And we thought this might be a good idea for an update. Right. So what's happened in 2 years?
Well, Matt, that's it's a tough question for me because it's been very frustrating. Very little has happened with our company in the last 2 years. In early 2022, we applied for an exploitation concession or a mining permit on our concessions in the Dominican Republic. That process led to the suspension of our work permit simply because anytime there's a new application going in and new information presented to the government, they usually want to take a look at things. It's been 2 years that application has been moving through government channels, and it's, considering the fact there hasn't been a mining license granted in the Dominican Republic since 2007, with the exception of Pueblo Viejo, which is a different animal altogether. It's been a number of years. So the government wants to make sure they get this right. We submitted a feasibility study to them, let them go through that. So it's been through 3 levels of review at this point in time. We think we're getting very close. The application has been passed up to the president's office. That was passed up late last year in October last year. But of course, there was an election in the Dominican Republic in mid-May of this year. So the president, as well as all of the politicians, went on the campaign trail, as early as December, just before Christmas. So of course, the application sort of sat on the edge of the desk waiting for results from that election. So that's, very little has been done. We expect we'll be able to accelerate things this year as long as we get the exploitation permit and the work permits back.
Right. Okay. So the incumbent was voted back in. So no change there then in terms of the political setup. Why is he or they any more likely to give you the permits now than they were when you submitted them 2 years ago? What will have changed?
President Vinder's party has always been supportive of mining, and they certainly realized through COVID, through 2020 through 2024, which has been the term for his presidency, certainly realized that mining contributed a significant amount to the economy in the Dominican Republic, mostly through Pueblo Viejo, but also through copper and nickel mines in the Dominican Republic. He has stated numerous times in the past that he'd like to see mining be promoted in the country and become a larger part of the economy. He realizes it brings jobs to rural areas and infrastructure to rural areas as well. So he'd like to see that promoted. So certainly in the past, his comments have reflected that he would like to see our project, as well as a number of other ones that are also in the permitting stage, go through. But this permit's not the last one. The president's aware that we still have to clear an environmental and social impact assessment, still have to go through community consultations to get there. So the process is far from over, but it is a first step. And then the community gets their chance to have a say on what we're doing and what the projects look like. So it's a fairly straightforward process.
Okay, so with those additional, the environmental, can you get on with things while you're waiting for those, or is it everything's put in the same pot and you can't move forward until you've got everything in place?
No, we think that we should be able to get the work permits back to allow us to start drilling again, allow us to do the exploration work. The difficulty in the eyes of the government at this point is that the concession really doesn't exist. It was an exploration concession. We reapplied for a mining concession, which is a completely different application. And as soon as we do that, even though the perimeter and the borders are identical, it becomes a new concession for them. So once that concession is granted to us, which is the mining concession, we expect that we'll have the work permit back and we can get our drills turning again. We can do that almost instantly. We own 4 drills in the Dominican Republic, which have been idle for 2 years. So we think we can get going on the exploration fairly quickly. And then as far as the detailed engineering, a lot of that's desktop studies while we're going through the ESIA to finish the detailed engineering that we need to move towards construction. So we think we can do that over the course of next year.
Okay, and you've just raised a little bit of money, a bit less than you wanted, but I can appreciate the markets are pretty tough out there. Certainly at the retail end of investment, raising capital.
Well, Matt, just on that point, I'll just tell you about the financings we've done over the last few years, and it's I find it's rather interesting. since 2022, since we put in the application for all of our financing has come out of the Dominican Republic. We currently have about 35% of our shareholders are in the Dominican Republic. They're family offices in the Dominican Republic that want to see mining go ahead. So what I find interesting is sort of the dichotomy between the perception in the European and the North American markets that you'll never get a permit in the Dominican Republic, as compared to the fact that we now have a 35% ownership in the company by Dominican families who certainly believe the opposite, that the concessions will be awarded and that we will be able to build a mine there. We've done those financings above market. They've all been 25% above market with fairly short-term warrants attached to them. But we continue to bring in new investors in the Dominican Republic or from the Dominican Republic. So I find that quite interesting. Those financings, at least the last one, the last two have basically been rights issues. I've picked up the phone and gone around and passed the hat amongst existing shareholders to get the support we need. They've been small raises because obviously we haven't been able to do any work, and just enough to keep the lights on until we think we can get this exploitation concession over the line.
Well, that's what I mean. But if you came to me and asked me for money just to keep the lights on, I'm not sure I'd be that interested. But you managed to get something over the line. So your point is there's an expectation from the Dominican Republic investors that this will move forward. That's what you're trying to say to me.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I have to assume that, Matt. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be writing checks and investing in the company on a continuous basis.
Right. Okay. Well, look, I guess we'll have to wait and see how quick those permits come through, and one hopes that they can, happen quickly. In your mind, quickly means what? Before this side of the new year? I
would like to think that it would be this year. I'd like to think that it would be shortly after inauguration, which is the third week in August is when the new government is sworn in, which would mean new cabinet ministers, new advisors, et cetera, would be the third week in August. So I'd like to think that it would be shortly thereafter.
Right. Okay. So let's get on and talk about, remind people what you got. Okay. What are you sitting on? We're talking gold, obviously. So maybe talk through the asset. What have you got? What do we know?
Yeah, I'll try not to be too long-winded about it. Of course, there's information on our website about it, and there's technical reports as well. But there's really three parts to what Unigold is doing in the Dominican Republic. The first part is exploration. Earlier this year, we signed a joint venture agreement with Barrick, who was quite interested in conducting exploration on part of our concessions. So the part that is not the mining concession, is not the subject of the application for the mining concession. It's about a 10,000 hectare northern part. We completed a joint venture with Barrick, and they'll spend about $12 million over the next 8 years to deliver a feasibility study on anything they may find there. So that's more of a long-term gain, and for us, we don't have to spend a penny on it. We'll wait and watch and see what Barrick can do on the northern part. We kept the southern part of the concession, which is also 10,000 hectares. But that's the area where all of our resources and reserves are, as well as most of our drilled targets are in the south as well. So we kept 100% control of that. We completed a feasibility study in late 2022, so just a little bit over a year ago. So that's up to date on the oxide portion of the deposit. Now, Matt, I know we had conversations in 2020 and 2021 talking about the oxide versus the sulfide portions of the deposit. The entire Candelones deposit is about 2.25 million ounces in total. When we were going through for the mining concession, we wanted to deliver a feasibility study to the government that was a small enough project that we could easily communicate what the project would look like to the local communities as well as the government. We wanted to deliver something that had a very small environmental permit as we introduce the local populations to what mining really looks like. So to do that, we looked at only the oxide portion of the deposit. It's heap leachable, it's free dig, there's no explosives. It's basically taking the top 20 meters off the top of a hill, moving it to a leach pad and leaching it really fast, good leach kinetics on it as well, because it's a weathered deposit. It's not a chemical sulfide like you would find in Nevada. It's a weathering oxide, which recovers fairly quickly. We expect to get 85 to 88% recovery within 60 to 70 days from the heap. So really quick turnaround, small footprint. So we engineered that. We put that forward to the government. But when I say small project, it's about 120,000 ounces. It lasts for about 3 years, produces about 30,000 ounces a year, but should be enough to introduce the community to what we're doing as we move forward into the larger sulfide deposit. And the larger sulfide deposit, of course, we'll have to do the engineering on it, but we expect that that's going to be much larger. The costs around the sulfide deposit are also small. It's about $25 to $30 million to get it, or I'm sorry, the oxide deposit. It's about $25 to $30 million to get it into production. Cash costs are about $850 an ounce. So at these current prices, it kicks out a fair amount of cash and a lot of free cash flow. So we intend to move forward with that and to complete the SIA on that portion of the project, just the oxide, while we continue to drill out and define the sulfides.
Okay, so I think a lot of companies obviously come around to that way of thinking because of the difficulties in the market and the difficulty in accessing the capex required to build some of these big projects. So showing a route to market, showing the ability to build, produce, and sell. One, anti-dilatory conversation, but two, says you can actually build and operate mines. So I think that's becoming popular. Now, with regards to 25, 35, 30 million bucks, talk through your kind of thoughts around financing of that, because clearly, the share price is where it is today. You're coming off a very low base. How much money to get you to the point where you can say we are, FID, construction ready?
Between now and owners' costs are about $5 to $6 million, and those owners' costs are primarily the ESIA, which we'll have to complete, which should take about 12 months. That's forecast to be about $1.5 million bucks. And then, of course, infrastructure studies and bringing in some new infrastructure. But after that, we're into the full capital of the construction process. We think a fair amount of that should be available through debt. We've had some offers, which we've simply said we got to wait till the end of the ESIA because we haven't completed detailed engineering on that. But we think we should be able to do 50 to 70% through debt. And part of the reason for that, Matt, is that the Dominican Republic is the largest economy in Central America. The banking system works, the court system works. It's a fairly secure spot for foreign investment. So there's, the standard debt providers understand that, in the Dominican Republic, it's not like some other places where you're going to have difficulty getting cash out. Money can freely move back and forth. So that certainly helps in what we're doing. We'd like to, the other thing to point out about the project is that current gold prices, this thing has an 85% IRR at current gold prices. The payback is less than a year. I'm not too concerned about the interest rate coupon on the debt since we're only going to hold it for maybe a year before it's paid off. So, whether it's at, LIBOR plus 5 or LIBOR plus 8 for the country risk, doesn't concern me too much because it's such a short-term piece of paper.
Right. Okay. And then have you hung on to the people that you had?
Yeah, we've kept most of the people. Our chief operating officer left the company immediately after we delivered the feasibility study, and that was an interesting conversation. But it was simply, this thing looks like it's going to go sideways for the next 2 years, and there's not much work for our senior technical people to do. So we downsized the company to basically myself, the accounting team, the corporate team, as I say, corporate secretary, et cetera, and kept our Dominican team almost in its entirety. So as far as our country manager, our community relations people, some of our technical people, we still maintain a presence in the area. It was 2 years ago we opened a local community consultation office in the local town in order to keep those efforts going. It's important to keep the lines of communication open and to let people know what's going on as we move through and start to accelerate the process.
Okay. Well, I mean, Joe, that's fine. Let's leave it there, because I think for me, it's just one, to remind myself that you're around. Two, like you waiting for these permits to come through, and then can I get a sense of how you're going to move forward when when the permits do arrive. So still in the oxides, which I think is smart. So look, I tell you what, just stay in touch and let us know when you're going to get a sense of how you can move this one forward. Unless there's anything else you want to let us know.
Yeah, no, the first step in this process is getting the mining license from the government. And, keep in mind that mining license gives us 75 years of tenure on the concession with fixed fiscal regimen for the first 25 years. So it gives some pretty good clarity and some pretty good certainty on what we're doing. We don't, we won't have to go through this permitting cycle again. And it's that permitting cycle that seems to delay things. So as soon as this gets granted to us, which we hope will be by the end of the year, certainly all indications seem to tell us that, then we can start moving forward with a larger picture into the detailed engineering and the SIA.
Right. Well, I guess that it's whether it gets granted at all. So whether it's this side of Christmas or after Christmas, it doesn't really matter. I guess the leverage here is the fact that you believe it's going to be issued and that you will be able to get after the project. So yeah, okay, brilliant. Well, Jeff, thanks very much for your time. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Matt.